Hey guys, I'm Shyrshadi. Welcome to episode 8 of StarCraft Breaking the Barriers. Today we are looking at platinum level PvP. Again, we're going to be going over our focus for platinum. I've actually modified this a little bit from a conversation we were having in the stream of our submitting Protoss player, and I'll shout him out when we get there. But basically this is a building block step. We mentioned last episode everything in StarCraft builds upon the level before it. So we're going to continue with our macro training, which is building probes, building pylons, our very beginning opener. Basically continuing to refine our build, refine our mechanics, being able to get more and more of our opener and our early game better. Get it right as much as possible. Starting to scout specifically to read your opponent and to specifically react to what you scout. If you see a Terran on 2 gases and he has nothing in his base, then you don't necessarily need to take your natural at 19 supply like you normally would. But it also doesn't mean you need to cancel it. It comes a lot with decision making, which I'm going to address in a minute. Learning to harass, which is where the multitask training starts. So in previous episodes in the lower level guides, I specifically said focus on macro, don't worry about harassment. I did an entire episode about why harassing could actually be bad. But when you move from gold into platinum, you need to start being able to develop your multitask training. So the idea is you spent bronze through gold learning mechanics, getting comfortable with that, and so now you're adding one more piece on, which is the multitask. It's having units on the other side of the map while you're macroing at home, and that's the idea. And we're going to see that in the next game. Army control and micro. So no longer is your army comp specifically about a move to victory. It's about casting spells on units, blinking under liberators, for instance, to snipe them, moving charge lots away from banelings so that they'll smash into your archons, and then you A-move your charge lots. Just little things, but it's actually really in-depth. Learning camera hotkeys. So you can do this at any level. I don't specifically mention it until platinum because a lot of times in the lower leagues you're just going to be looking at your bases building stuff anyway. But in platinum, as you start having armies across the map before your main attack moves out, you're going to want to be able to get to your bases to build pylons, build extra gateways, move to a new expansion location to build another nexus, to respond to counter aggression, harassment of some sort from the opponents, so that you can quickly respond, hit the button, warp in units, kill what's there, go back to your army. And decision making, which is it goes back to scouting specifically, but it's has a lot to do with not just the early game. It has to do more with, okay, it's 5 minutes into the game, my Zerg opponent is taking all of his gases on 3 bases and he barely has any drones on his third, so what's going on? And so you scout and you say, this is probably going to be an all-in. I need to get my army home, I need to get some extra pylons, build some cannons, get my mothership ready to make sure it has full energy at one of the bases that I'm expecting, and try to get some zealots on the map to see where the attack is coming from. And it's all very in-depth, and basically comes down to game sense, which is something you will develop as you continue to play, and it's very difficult to teach decision making, but I can try to help you understand it a little bit better. So we are going to get into our replay now, which is Aerat versus Shyrshadi. So Aerat's recently been doing the build of the week on the All Things Protoss subreddit, where he is going the stats 3-gate robo pressure build. He does a pretty good job of it. I watched him execute it basically all night last night, hanging out in his stream. And I do want to shout him out too. His twitch.tv/Aerat. Just as you see it written here, written his name here. And I'll post a link in the description box below as well. So anyway, it's just the normal opener. Does a good job with that to double gate, double gas. And he gets a second pylon with his cyber core. He actually timed that out pretty well. Cyber core and pylon completing about the same time, so he's able to start warp gate and his units at the same time. And there he goes, chronoing warp gate, perfect. 2 stalkers on the way. And this probe from I'm going to call him Charles because reasons. Over there to scout the Nexus timing. Aerith going ahead and taking an expansion. His Robo is about to finish. As soon as this expansion is done, he's going to start making an Immortal. Switching his Chrono Boost, he's making making a sentry, excuse me. This is his first sentry, so that's his third gateway. Starts another sentry to have 2 sentries. He's going to have a Warp Prism. He'll be going into an Observer after the fact. And he's about to push across the map, trying to chase that Oracle down. And here he goes, pushing across the map a little bit before 5 minutes. He's going to come in from this side and try to put some pressure on. This is pretty well walled in. Is able to get that scout. So Army moves up into position, and he's going to put some pressure on. So this is where you have to look at the production tab, though. This is where the multitasking comes in, because while you see the pressure's coming on right now, there's not really anything in production right now for Aerith. He's got plenty of money. The unit count is Aerith's on 29 workers, which honestly, for the build, is not horrible. Stats basically cut a lot of probes to make his build happen, and about the time his push moved across the map, he started making probes again. But we don't see that quite from Aerith. He doesn't have the multitasking that would be ideal in this situation, and obviously if he's just learning this build, he's not going to be able to execute perfectly. But he does a pretty good job. Now let's watch and see though what changes. So he's seen the Void Rays, and he's still warping into attack. So the thing is, when you see tech like this, when you see Void Rays, and you know, okay, my opponent's making Void Rays, at this point you send the Observer in, which he's doing, and you see what his tech looks like. The Observer is going to get in here and see a robotics facility just starting. He sees another Void Ray. If he moves over to see the army, he's going to see 3 Void Rays. And if he gets to the back of the mineral line, which I don't think he does, he's going to scout double Stargate. So this is a little bit of an older build, what Charles is doing. It's the 2 Stargate Void Ray Immortal into Skytoss build. And this was actually really popular before the change went through that slowed down the Void Rays whenever they align. And to be honest, it's still a decent build. So now we do see a little bit of macro coming behind from Aerith. So about a minute later than I would have liked to see it come out, when he realizes, okay, this isn't going to work as well. So this is when he commits super hard. He just blows 2 Guardian Shields and just pushes in, and he backs off with a double overcharge, which is good. But I honestly would like to see him pull back. Basically, by this point, you're just trying to pressure your opponent. You're not really trying to kill him. Just trying to maybe deny a third base, sort of a soft contain. Problem is, though, Aerith is behind. He's actually just even in workers. A little bit of a worker cut from Charles as feels like he's being all in. But we're going to see a really cute move out of actually Charles in just a minute. So more Void Race. He's just sitting there. He knows he's being contained. But we have a Warp Prism on the way. And he's going to load up some charge lots and move across the map. When he gets there, he's going to warp in some charge lots. So what's going to happen is the multitasking from our blue Protoss is going to exceed that of our red Protoss. So he drops some units, and he's going to warp in, and Aerith's response is, oh no, I got to pull my probes. And so he pulls his probes away, which is good. He's warping in a few units to try to defend, but he's only on 3 warp gates right now, sitting on 750 minerals, 624 gas, and he decides he's got to attack. But because he is trying to do so much on both sides, you see a lot of move command on these Stalkers. And so they move command for a good 5 seconds before they actually get to engage. And you're basically fighting Stalkers into Charge Lot Void Ray, which is basically the hard counter for Stalkers. So Aerith taps out. So what is the problem? Is it the build? No, this build is actually pretty good. I mean, it's a little bit hard to attack into this side, and pushing up this little choke is a little bit of a challenge. Like, it's not the greatest build on this map, but it's definitely workable. I think what happened is Aerith got too focused on his pressure and forgot to macro. And a lot of times you'll see this, especially as people are learning how to get to that stage of macro while microing, while doing this and doing that and doing every other thing. Recently in the OSC Masters Cup, the Grand Finals, Neeb versus a Laser, in Game 5 on Catalina. Neeb multitasked and harassed a Laser to death by having Adepts in 2 mineral lines and Archons in a 3rd mineral line all at once while macroing behind it. And a Laser ultimately couldn't keep up with Neeb. because of the constant pressure, constant aggression, constant having to pull drones, pull his army in different directions, and that kind of multitasking, that kind of harassment, puts you at a huge advantage if you're macroing behind it. And while I had said in a previous video, don't harass in lower leagues, when you get into Platinum League, that is when you start learning to harass. Maybe wait till Platinum 2, just when you get used to your defensive mechanics. Although, to be fair, playing defensive versus Terran is fine, playing defensive versus Protoss is fine. Defensive versus Zerg, if you can rush Skytoss to get there safely, you can play defensive versus Zerg. But learning how to multitask is going to be a very important thing that you do in the future in your StarCraft career, whatever that may end up being if you go to Diamond and just decide you've had enough, if you go all the way to Masters. If you make it in the GM, it's going to take stretching your skills, developing new skills, and I do hope this video helps. I know it is a little bit of a different style of video. It covered a lot of stuff, and I didn't explain a lot of it as much as I would have liked to. As a caveat, I'm actually going to be creating a new YouTube series for various levels that's a lot more of a broad topic base than just looking at a replay and talking about what could have been done differently or what was done in a certain situation. That's going to be, the first episode is Welcome to Bronze, StarCraft 2. And it's going to talk about, so you've literally just bought this game and you don't know what you're doing, here's what you do. And it's going to go through like that. And in the later episodes, I'm going to have to break them up into parts because it's going to go a lot more in depth into things like decision making and going into not just the what of a pro player, but the why. It's going to look at some pro player VODs and say, he did this build versus this player on this map. Why? So we're going to do a lot of that, a lot of analysis, and it's going to be pretty cool. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If this video helped you, be sure to comment below. And also feel free to check out my social media stuffs, my Discord, my Twitch stream as well, and then my email for sending replays is up there as well. Thanks so much and have a great day.